She barged out, where her brother was going back. She called him, "Brother, actually you don't want to call the scholar after all." "What? Why the sudden chain?" She replies, "I am not still used to summoning spirit. If I fail to summon P when the scholar comes, it would only cost inconvenience. Besides, if the examination reveals that the P is just a pigeon or sparrow, Father would be even more disappointed." He thought and said, "Ah, all right. If you feel that strongly about it, okay then." She waves to him and said, "Leave this matter to me, brother." She thinks, no matter what P is, I will manage to keep it a secret from the Duke. Next day, in Matthias' office, flashing green light that broke the window of the Duke office. He turned back and looked. It was Spring Emerald, the Emperor's spirit with a royal letter in its legs. Duke's wild spirit growled in anger. Duke said, "Honestly, the Emperor always does this. I can't stand having my window broken time to time again." He took the letter from it. The emerald flew back magnificently. The response came from the Emperor regarding the political marriage between the Prince Edrian and Lenya. The Emperor agreed to the union, but on one condition: purify the soulstone mine. The Duke thought, I expected something unreasonable, but this. The soulstones are minerals imbued with life force. By utilizing the life force, spirits can be raised to grow stronger, making them highly valuable in trade. However, recent incidents have seen that soulstone mining sites contaminated with dark magic by unknown force. And the Emperor ordered us to purify the Westal mine, the largest mine in the Empire. Your Excellency, if I may. Surely you know that there are no priests in this empire capable of purifying such a vastly contaminated area. He mentioned that the proposal is granting ownership of the mine and approving of the marriage. If purification is completed, it seems that failure is to be expected. His Majesty repeatedly issues impossible order. The Duke replies, "Yes, to torment me. Indeed, Excellency, should we reject the conditions outright?" The Duke says, "Even so, you know this as well. This is a punishment I must accept. During the Demon War, many innocent lives were lost because of me." But the butler replied, "That incident was not a sin for your Excellency to atone for." Duke replied, "Spirits and spirit users are been connected by their souls. Thus, the sin committed by my spirit are also my own. In any case, we must find priests capable of purifying the mine." The butler asked the Duke that, should we inform Lady Lenya about the letter? While the Duke replying to the butler. Lenya opened both the doors and barged in. "Father, did you receive any response to my marriage? I saw His Majesty's spirit crash through the window earlier." The Duke realized, how many years has it been since she came on her own? First, she insisted on marrying, despite rejecting it for years. Then suddenly, she want to meet. She seems like a different person. After coming out of his thoughts, Duke replied, "Yes, it arrived just earlier, but..." She interrupts the Duke by saying, "Didn't it say the marriage would only be approved if the soulstone mine were purified?" He was shocked like lightning hit him. "How do you know that?" he asked. With cunning expression, she said, "I heard rumors that His Majesty is struggling with that matter." She was able to guess the letter content because she was reincarnated. In the original story, this was the time when the Emperor pushed the mining issue to the Duke. With confidence in her face, she said, "I will resolve this issue myself." In shock, he asked, "Do you understand how vast the mines His Majesty mentioned?" Bravely, she replied that she can do that but needs his help. She requests him, "First summon the Prince Edrian. I need to meet him directly without His Majesty involving." He flinched his eyes and said, "What could he possibly do?" Suddenly changed his mind. "Fine, I'll invite him," he added. She clapped her hands with joy. "Thank you. Please leave this mines and the marriage to me." He writes the letter immediately and send it through the bird. In back, she watches the bird, which takes the letter. In the Duke Palace. Duke standing with a glass of wine against the window wall, thinking that Lenya of all people, she choose him? Even without considering the emperor, I dislike Adrian and want to oppose this marriage. But when faced with Lenya, I couldn't face myself to refuse. Her gaze was far too similar to Lilia's. He takes a sip from the wine glass and say, "The reason I have been distant myself from Lenya until now might be because I didn't have the courage to face surface so identical to Lilia's. Even her terrible taste in men is just like Lilia's." He glares at his own reflection in the mirror and says, "I have to stop this marriage at all cost, though I have already taken measure to do so." 1 week later. Lenya hesitantly walking here and there, thinking, he is late. He was supposed to come today. With disbelief she taught, for him not to show up until this hours, it's strange. Ed isn't the kind of character to be late. Suddenly having a striking shock in her mind, got idea. It could be the Duke who might have wrote a offensive letter or something. Her body trembling, I should have sent the letter myself. Behind her, the maid yelling, my lady, my lady." He has arrived. In joy, she asked, really, as she runs towards the balcony to see him. There comes the prince with the mesmerizing black Pegasus. For the first time, she is looking the prince face to face, and she was stunned. And the prince uncovered his face and looked at the princess. Finally, Lenya's efforts were all worth it. She was stunned by the prince's arrival. She greets him, "Your Highness, welcome and thanks for coming." He got down from the Pegasus, asked her whether she is the Duke's daughter. She replied yes and introduced herself to him. With disappointed, "It seems the Duke is busy, to have only a lady greet me." She handled the situation well by informing, "Yes, he is tied up with work, so I have come in his place out of necessary." She assuming, as expected, that Duke rude letter as upset him. The fact that he arrived so late must mean he's unhappy. The Duke, too, dislikes him and didn't bother coming to greet him. He is likely planning to appear much later. Duke watching them from the first floor through the opaque window. Disappointed thinking that he has arrived already, in this chaotic situation between these both. She thought, I can't let my guard down for a second if I want to overcome this psychological battle and secure a marriage with ED. They both went inside the mansion, having a cup of tea in her room. Table was filled with delicious food and beverages. By taking a sip, she thought, I can't let myself underestimated. If that happens, it will repeat the tragedy from the original story. By placing the cup down, Prince Ed asked, My lady, I have something that I want to ask you. The Duke doesn't seem to think highly of me, so why did you choose me as your partner? She tells him that there is a misunderstanding. With confused look, he asked, A misunderstanding? She explains him that it wasn't my father who wished for it, it was me. She thinks, I need to make it clear I am not just following my father's order. I have to make him see that the real partner she should align with, it's me, not the Duke. He was shocked by her answer. She added, Yes, it was my decision to choose your highness, ask my partner, and invite you here. He crossed his leg and asked, Then let me ask, why did you choose me? His question leaves out a lot of words, but what he is really wondering is likely why would she, the daughter of a duke, Who would easily aim for a marriage with the crown prince to someone like him, an illegitimate child? And this question is her perfect chance to make him tune his attention towards her. She answers him, "I see a shining future ahead of you. Prince Edrian, your Highness processes the potential to achieve greater things someday. Well, with that potential, likely he will commit terrible atrocities, but she will fully intend to stop him from doing so. Something Ed had secretly worked on in the original story." With the interesting gesture, he leaned forward and said, "I see, for example." She informs him, for instance, purchasing land in the Britain region. That land was long abandoned as useless, but your Highness was the only one who recognized its value and invested in it. As a result, it has been reborn as a tourist destination, bringing immense profit to you. The world thinks your Highness was just lucky to stumble upon it. But I don't believe it. It wasn't luck, but your skill that made it happen, was it not? He was surprised by her view of thoughts and said, "You are more than I imagined, of course. I had you investigated before coming here. I assumed you were just an obedient daughter to your father, but I didn't expect you to have such keen insight. I am starting to want to know more about you, my lady." Ed knows full well how charming he is. Even though he has no love to offer, he uses women like this, but she won't fall for this. She stood up from the chair and grapes his hand. She said, "If that's the case, let's marry. I will reveal everything about myself to you. When we are married, I will devote myself entirely to your Highness, no matter what that entails." He takes his hand back towards him and asks, "What benefit do you gain from doing so far?" With the cunning look, she replied, "Your Highness' benefit is my benefit, and vice versa. I seek a marriage where mutually we bring advantage to each other. I believe this is not a bad proposition for your Highness either. A marriage with me, that is." Having his index finger in cheek, then, door opens, and the Duke comes in by saying, "Excuse me for being late." Back there, the princess annoyed. What a terrible timing. Prince Edrian tells him, "No worries, she has been an excellent conversation partner. As we talked, I have discovered that we shared the same thoughts." Duke was shocked, saying, "And what would be those?" Princess was also shocked by the prince's words. He continued, "Ah, I am happy to accept a marriage with Lenya." With no more complications, he said, "Ah, the matter of purifying the mine. I will take care of it, Duke Mont. Please focus on preparing for the marriage." The princess was overjoyed by the Prince Edrian words. He offered his hand and said, "Lenya, I did like to rest for a bit. Could you please show me your room?" Taking his hand, she replied, "Yes, let me guide you." In Lenya's room, he is walking front and back thinking, is she acting on her own will? Proposing the marriage came from the Duke but didn't seem enthusiastic about welcoming me. Still, she might prove useful in various things. Of course, if she becomes a hindrance, I will have no choice but to discard her from my plans. Lenya is about to come in the room. He was stunned and his face turned bright red. Lenya enters the room in a stunning half-white gown, saying, "I brought the marriage contract. Please review it. Let's see what contract states about in upcoming episodes." Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next video. Please do like and subscribe.